Greetings, Fire Chargers, Darkblade here, and today it is time for that controversial video. I'm going to say something that many people might be triggered by, even though I think they shouldn't. Disclaimer: my plan for making this video was not influenced by recent events that you might have heard of in the media. Okay, here is this controversial claim. Peter was, yes, the first pope. I am saying this as a Protestant. Now, what do I actually mean? I mean that Peter was the leader of the community of believers in the city of Rome. So he was the leader of the Roman Church. So that way, the popes are, in fact, successors to a post that Peter did actually hold. So I think there was some sort of specialness to him. I plead agnosticism on whether any specific aspects of that specialness were inherited by later popes. I suspect that some of my Protestants might not like the word Pope because they associate it with certain Catholic baggage and attributes that they see as unbiblical, illegitimate power grabs. But in my mind, that doesn't have to be a source of problem or controversy if we don't even believe that the Pope has those attributes in the first place. So that is what I mean when I, a Protestant, affirm the proposition that Peter was the first Pope. Now, I will start. This is Ecclesiastical History by Eusebius, Volume 2, Chapter 14. The Preaching of the Apostle Peter in Rome. The evil power who hates all that is good and plots against the salvation of men constituted Simon, that's some sorcerer named Simon Magus mentioned earlier, at that time the father and author of such wickedness, as if to make him a mighty antagonist of the great inspired apostles of our Savior. For that divine and celestial grace which cooperates with its ministers by their appearance and presence, quickly extinguished the kindled flame of evil, and humbled to cast down upon them everything that exalted itself against the knowledge of God. 2 Corinthians 10:5. Wherefore neither the conspiracy of Simon nor that of any of the others who arose at that period could accomplish anything in those apostolic times. For everything that was conquered and subdued by the splendors of truth and by the divine word itself, which had but lately begun to shine from heaven upon men, and which was then flourishing upon the earth and dwelling in the apostles themselves. Immediately the above-mentioned impostor was smitten in the eyes of his mind by a divine and miraculous flash. After the evil deeds done by him had first been detected by the apostle Peter, he fled and made a great journey across the sea from the east to the west, thinking that only thus he could live according to his mind. And coming to the city of Rome by the mighty cooperation of that power or which was lying in wait there. He was in a short time so successful in his undertaking that those who enrolled there dwelt there honored him as a god by the instruction of a statue. But this did not last long, for immediately during the reign of Claudius, the all good and gracious providence which watches over all things led Peter, the greatest and strongest of the apostles, and the one on whom an account of his virtue was the speaker of others, to Rome against the miscreant corrupter of life. Clad in divine armor and like a noble commander of God, he carried the costly merchandise of the light of the understanding from the east to those whom dwelt in the west, proclaiming the light itself and the word which brings salvation of souls, and preaching the kingdom of heaven. And thus, when the divine word had made its home among them, the power of Simon was quenched and immediately destroyed together with the man himself. And so greatly did the splendor of piety illuminate the minds of Peter's hearers that they were not satisfied with hearing once only, and were not content with the unwritten teaching of the divine gospel, but with all sorts of entreaties they besought Mark, a follower of Peter, and the one whose gospel is extant, that he would leave them a written monument of the doctrine which had orally been communicated to them. Nor did they cease until they had prevailed with the man, and had thus become the occasion of the written gospel which bears the name of Mark. And they said Peter, which he had learned through a revelation of the Spirit of that which had been done, was pleased with the zeal of the men, and that he was and that the work obtained the sanction of his authority for the purpose of being read in the church, using the churches. Clement in the eighth book of his Hypothesis gives this account, and with him agrees the bishop of Hierapolis named Papias. And Peter makes mention of Mark in his first epistle, which they say that he wrote in Rome itself, as indicated by him when he calls the city by a figure Babylon, as he does in the following words: "The church that is at Babylon, elected together with you, salutes you, and as so does Marcus, my son." 1 Peter 5:13. Now I should be able to just... Oh, so that's a different Clement. When did Clement of Alexandria likely died around 215 AD, while he was still alive in died sometime between 211. When would I go to shopping? So I'm seeing a whole bunch of wildly different dates here. Here from 164 to 120. Next, I'll go to book 3. Scroll down near to the bottom. This is chapter 39, titled The Writings of Papias. I'll start at chapter 14. Papias gives also in his work other accounts of the word of the Lord on the authority of Aristion, who was mentioned above, and the traditions as handed down by the presbyter John, to which we refer to those found in learning, to which we must add to the words which we have already quoted in the tradition he gives in regard to Mark, the author of the Gospel. This also the presbyter said, Mark having been the interpreter of Peter, wrote down accurately, though not in order, whatsoever he remembered of the things that he had said or done by Christ, for he neither heard the Lord nor followed him, but afterward, as I said, he followed Peter, who adapted his teachings to the needs of his hearers, but with no intention of giving a connected account of the Lord's discourses, so that Mark committed no error while he wrote some things as he remembered them. For he was careful of one thing, not to omit any of the things which he had heard, and not to state any of them falsely. These are the things related to by Papias concerning Mark. This word presbyter here, it's inside part of the quotes, is probably referring back to John the Presbyter, who would have been a late 1st century figure. I know Eusebius believes he is a different person than the Apostle John. You might believe that, you might not. And remember where the previous volume said Peter was? So here we have this. And let me go to one other place. So we have Papias relying earlier tradition from John the presbyter / elder. And let's go to, no, actually I didn't want to go to the ecclesiastical history again. Here's another one. This is Against Heresies by Irenaeus, Volume 3, Book 1. Matthew also issued this. This was written in the late 2nd century because he died in 202. Matthew also issued a written gospel among the Hebrews in their own dialect, while Peter and Paul were preaching at Rome and laying the foundations of their church. After their departure, Mark, the disciple interpreter of Peter, did also hand down to us, but in writing what had been preached by Peter. So we have relatively early testimony going back to at least the mid 2nd century and plausibly to the late 1st century with Papias' relaying of the earlier John the Elder that Peter was leader of the Roman Church, which it means that the popes are the successors to an office or post that he did hold, which means that in that sense, yes, Peter was the first pope. Friendly reminder that I am saying all of this as a Protestant. Goodbye, Fire Chargers. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. Dark Blade out.